Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm Vered Kogan, and I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to our very special guest, Janet Harvey. Janet is the CEO of inviteCHANGE, a coaching and human development organization that shapes a world where people love their life's work. She is a master certified coach and accredited educator through the International Coaching Federation, also known as ICF, and is truly a visionary leader in the global professional coaching industry, engaging adults, teams, and global enterprises for nearly 30 years to invite change that sustains well-being and excellence. Janet is also the best-selling author of the award-winning leadership and coaching book, inviteCHANGE: Lessons from 2020, the year of no return. And I've had a chance to be trained by Janet and also to hear her speak. And I've heard her share that her higher intention is to ignite 7 billion heroes around our world. And one of the most accelerated and sustainable ways to do that is through the power of coaching because it awakens consciousness. And I'm so grateful to have you here with us, Janet. You are one of my mentors in the sense of I've heard you speak, I've heard you, and I know how respected you are in the coaching profession. And so really an honor to have you here. Thank you.
Well, a delight to be with you and all of your audience. And I love the subject we're talking about.
So let's get right into it. What do you mean by igniting 7 billion heroes?
After all this time, I have thought long and hard about how do we tackle what I think is a massive and accelerating evolution that we're witnessing. You and I are alive to see the transition of, I'm going to say civilization. That sounds a little big, and yet every single system we look at is stretching at its seams to the point of almost dissolving. Education, economics, governance. What is civility? Do we know how to be a civilian? I think we only know how to be a consumer these days. Food insecurity, water insecurity. And clearly there is something different wanting to birth. And I got to thinking about, in my own life, it was heroes. I looked to heroes, role models, people that I admired and respected. And I thought, if I was like them, if I was strong enough, perseverant enough, gritty enough, loving enough, then I too could be a hero that would help move things forward in a positive way. Only it's not working. That's exactly what I've done for 30 years. And while I would say coaching has made it possible to support people to be more alive, fostering their own autonomy, creating the lives they want and ones that they love, it's not enough. We have 7.783 billion people on the planet. Do we really think a handful, some maybe 1 million or 2 million or 3 million people? That's about the number of people who call themselves coach, whether they've been trained or not, right? Well, we'll just say it's 3. 3 million people aren't going to cut it. And the truth is, when I am with young leaders, millennial leaders, and Gen Z leaders, and really the youth behind them, which I believe are being called alpha now, they don't really want anything to do with what my generation learned how to do. So not only are they seeking another way and seeing the world as it is, not as it was or framed or shaped by, but they're also not terribly interested in hearing our advice. So that's what got me thinking, what's a mindset shift? What's my mindset shift as an experience? I have an experience of life that was pretty useful if you haven't had an experience of life yet. And at the same time can be deeply respectful and honoring of what the youth are able to see doesn't work in the current systems and how available they are to allow something else to emerge. Well, that mindset shift isn't just in the head. That's all the left brain capability. And we've highly revered the ability for all of us to gain knowledge and deploy that knowledge in some repeatable way. Only when the foundation from which we built that knowledge is no longer here, then what? Right? To me, the mindset shift is, how do I be with uncertainty? How do I be with not knowing as a creative impulse as opposed to a fear-inducing paralysis? So that's how I got on this. Like, how do we have every single one of us be ignited to be a hero in our own lives and in the rippling circles of our communities that we have direct access to? I think that's how we restore well-being and thriving in the world.
It is a pretty tremendous vision to have because I
Mm.
believe in the power of us. I know that from coaching, and we also know that from research, collective intention, and
Yeah.
coming together, we create an even bigger, quicker, more sustainable wave than any of us could on our own, no matter how uh, successful we consider ourselves to be. So tell us a little bit more about this mindset shift or about what we can do to really embody our own inner hero.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a question I often hear from people is, well, it all makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Why don't we? Like, why don't we just pick this up? You just reference research. Of course, it shows it. So to me, the really big problem is fear. The power of fear overrides the power of love. We forget that the human DNA requires connection and belonging. We don't survive without it. And yet we construct all kinds of ways in which we stay safe because we're protecting that thing we love as if it doesn't have a power of its own. And we give over to managing risk and the things that cause us to feel threatened in some way. Now, my birthmark is obvious, but I will tell you that equally disturbing for people is that I'm wicked smart, athletic, articulate, all in a short in stature female body. Oh, yeah, I had plenty of people that behaved, mostly unconsciously, to exclude or dismiss me because of my difference. We've let difference come between us, and we lose out on being able to be curious and be in wonder about someone who is different from us. We seek out the thing that is the same because it's safe and familiar until such time as we're either bored or something dramatic happens in our lives. Oftentimes, this is, as you know, when somebody comes to a coach. You know, a senior leader will call and say, all of a sudden, this person on my team is no longer contributing in the way that we'd intended. Well, you know me, I'm a little bit cheeky. I often say, so what did you start doing differently 6 months ago when you noticed this? Well, I didn't notice it 6 months ago. I know. That's the point. Right? So there's this, I think there's a really strong call for us to slow things down a little bit. Yes, mindfulness has come in for that purpose. Yes, meditation has come in for that purpose. And there are parts of the population that are adopting those as practices. But it's not enough. We're doing it as remediation or to help us feel less uncomfortable with what's in front of us so we can get back to the way it was. I actually had a PR agent say to me, why did you say year of no return in your book subtitle? And that was in early 21. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's at the heart of the mindset shift. There was so much belief that the pandemic would go away and we would be back to normal the way it always was. And look at CEO after CEO that is wringing their hands beside themselves that they can't get people to come back to the office. It's not going to happen. Genie's out of the bottle. People appreciate having the autonomy. And with the autonomy comes tremendous creativity and contribution. So the question then is, what is it that we could do in our everyday lives rather than through the drama of something like the pandemic? How do we shift our relationship to What's our part every day? What's my part for me? How do I stay in integrity with my values? What's my part with my spouse, with my siblings, with my children, with my elders that are all in a constellation with me, seeing the world in a certain way and realizing, hmm, that's not the same world that we see today. How do I see the world as it is and be in wonder and curiosity about it? Well, to me, that's the slow down and be still. That's the step one. But where do we go from there? And to me, this is the opportunity. Mindset shift is about listening to other ways of knowing. We've done a great job in elevating our analytic, rational, logical reasoning. We're not so good at revering intuition, gut instinct, sensation. I had a boss one time who said, "Now, you do realize that you're probably the smartest person here in the company." And I just looked at him and rolled my eyes. I said, "Well, do you want to really know my secret?" And he looked at me kind of funny. And I said, I get answers intuitively. Then I go figure out what's the answer you need to know logically." I so burst his bubble. He was mad at me for months. Months. He said, "You can't repeat that to anybody else." Now, I worked in financial services, so, I get that that was pretty extreme thing that I was saying. But you know what? I'm done hiding behind that because the truth is my intuition is fantastic and it partners really well with my left brain. And the two are unbeatable. I sense and experience things that are going on around me and pick up the emotional and physical signals that say it's ready for change. Something else is ready to show itself. And if I'll slow down enough, I see the clues. So, what are we teaching leaders now? Agile, be anticipatory, be adaptive. What is all of this? That's right brain capacities. All human beings have it. We need to get everybody revering it equally as much as we do logic and reasoning.
So, how do we do it, right? How do we get still and tap into that inner wisdom or inner guidance?
So I'm going to give you kind of a really ordinary life metaphor that I came up with. Let's see how it works for you. Most everybody over the age of 16 drives a car. I love driving a manual transmission. I just like the engagement with a clutch. It's just really fun. And now they've got automatic cars where they have paddles on the steering wheel. What do you do when you're going down a really steep hill? You downshift. What do you do before you make a turn? You slow down, you hit the brake, you check to make sure that it's going to be an okay turn, and you downshift to make the turn around the corner. That's what we need to do. We need to downshift because we got a lot of challenges coming right in front of us. And pull over and turn the engine off and sit still for a little bit. We're so busy going that we can't see what's right in front of us, already giving us some indications of what ought to be next. Go all the way out to the big macro view again. Janet Yellen interviewed on CBS, I think like 2 weeks ago, and she said, the indicators are moving in the right direction. We have to give it some time to correct itself. We're 7 years getting into this mess. It didn't happen on one person's watch. We all had something to do with how we got here, including some things that we couldn't have predicted or controlled. All we can do now is be with what's here. And if we're here, we can say, a different set of choices than I would have made a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Can we cut ourselves some slack and stop being in this place of absolutes? Because there is no such thing and never has been.
Right.
We invented that and it's killing us.
Well, the ego seems to love, that certainty or right. So let me ask you a question. Well, I guess it's a question about questions because as we're slowing down or about to turn and or maybe pulling over altogether, what are some things that we can ask ourselves or maybe ask others to connect with that inner wisdom?
Well, there's the obvious set of questions, which is what are you sensing? What are you feeling? What's your intuition telling you? What's the hunch you have in your gut? How early did you recognize that something just didn't seem to add up? What did you say to yourself that had you shut it off and instead prefer a habit, a preference, or an assumption, all of which add up to bias? Now, bias in and of itself isn't a bad thing. It's that we go on autopilot in response to the bias and we miss what's in front of us. This is how it becomes so dangerous and disempowering for the one who has the bias and the one who's at the affect of the bias, right? So the most important thing is to say, what are you aware of? What are you perceiving? What meaning are you making of what you perceive? How is it influencing the way you're choosing to show up, make decisions, and interact? Now, that's mindsets. You know this, right? This is your body of work. And I'm so delighted because I don't think people stop long enough to say, huh, what is my mindset? Now, mindset's not a simple idea. Yeah, absolutely. It's our constructed belief system. Now, notice I said constructed because, of course, that's how it happens. No, we don't always know we did it, but we did. We constructed it. Usually, mom and dad gave us our first set, and then a boss gave us another, and then our friends, and maybe our spouse or, committed partner, whatever it is. We construct belief systems all the time, which, oh, by the way, means we can deconstruct them when they stop working. What about our values? What about our frame of reference? What about our cultural context? What about our thoughts and ideas and our attitude? Do you get up every morning? I love to ask clients this when I'm first starting with them. When you first open your eyes in the morning, what's the emotion you let yourself feel? Now, my husband would say to me, yeah, you always get up with a smile in your face and a laugh in your voice. I said, that's true. I always have since a little girl. And he said, I don't. You just can't ask me to do that until I've had 5 or 10 minutes to focus. Like, okay. So, you wake up in the morning with an emotion of stillness and you let things come into focus. I'm already up and out. I've got my focus. It's in my body. Each of us is different. So by asking that question of clients, I start to get a sense about their rhythm. How much of that rhythm is constructed on a belief system to protect them from what feels scary, right? What is fear? Fear is the protection to the thing we hold most dear. There isn't anything wrong with that until the thing in our brains, the old part of our brain, the reticular activating system is a fancy word for it. And the neuroscientists could wax on for hours with you about how our biology keeps us small. It's wrong, right? It wants the energy conservation of habit. It wants the satisfying dopamine of the thing that's familiar, the childhood smells of chocolate chip cookies when you got home from school or whatever it was, right? It longs for that simplicity. Only that's where we get in trouble because that naivete doesn't match up with the world as adults that we're navigating. And if we are unable to loosen our grip on that, we'll miss the opportunity we have to engage differently and to bring our capacities in a new way, make a difference in the world in a new way of making that difference. 7 billion heroes ignited.
And I love that you are giving compassion to these biases of us, these fears, because they are over attachments to things that we hold dear, that we love. So the intention is very pure, right? It's very protective. it just manifests in ways that might not be healthy for us or for others anymore.
Yeah.
And so let's say we do what you've shared with us. So we pause, we ask ourselves these questions. What am I sensing? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What is the meaning I'm giving to this thing? Um, and we become conscious of maybe a story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves or others. What then?
This is where wonder and curiosity comes in. So absolutely the step of what's the story of my life that I have said over and over and over again as if it is the whole story. And that's the question to ask. What's left out of this story I've told of myself? What's motivating me to leave it out? What would be different today if I brought that piece I left out back into my story? What if I restored by remembering my wholeness? We're coming full circle back to coaching, right? Then from my wholeness, this is such an important point and question you've asked me. There is nothing to compete or compare with. There is nothing I must rise and fulfill in the form of expectations. I am already whole. It was up to me to remember my being. And when I do that, now I don't have any limits except the ones I put on myself. Oh, back to beliefs. I can construct a different set of limits. I trust who I am, all of who I am, which means wherever I show up, I'm not trying to project on other people anymore. I can actually see them. I might catch a glimpse of a person who's different from me and say, wow, thank goodness, something new for me to learn. Right?
And not to
Growth
experience.
mindset's not here. Yeah, growth mindset's here in the heart. It says there is wonder and curiosity available in others who are not like me.
And I think it's beautiful that you started this with, we need to get still and to go inward. Because unless we can first accept all the parts of us, we're not really capable of seeing the truth in the world around us.
Yeah.
Because the filters are on. So I'm curious now, in terms of like this mindset shift or this individual mindset shift for all of us to become aware of and shift our own stories. What are you seeing as some aspects of coaching that can help to accelerate that process?
Yeah. I think all of us in the coaching world today that work inside of enterprises are presented with leaders wringing their hands about the hybrid workplace. And um, totally understandably. And I think that they have overlooked just how profound the effect is on people feeling a sense of connection and belonging. So one of the things that needs to happen at the more senior senior levels of the organization is that they are examining their own assumptions about what a healthy workplace is, what a thriving employee experience is, right? At a strategy level, they're not thinking about reconstructing the employee experience. So there's an imagining, originating a new way of understanding what is the role of livelihood in people's lives? What's my responsibility to construct that? That's not a conversation you hear much out of the HR circles. And it's everybody's job because I spend my waking hours in my livelihood. Even if I'm a housewife or a house dad, right? Either house husband, either one. If what your employment is, your livelihood, if you will, is taking care of the children, what is the effect of your partner who might be doing something else for someone else for a paycheck? What's the influence on you? We have to look at the whole picture. This is where America is so far behind the other countries in this world that understand the importance of childcare and parental leave at the beginning, in the middle, and the end, right? All the way throughout. So coaching is about helping people see the world as it is and to loosen the grip, as I said, on the habits and preferences what we've constructed, because the world as it is doesn't get supported by those. And then there's the next layer down in the organization. So middle managers have the worst job in the world. Why do anybody ever wants to be a middle manager? I know why, because they think they're going to get to be a senior manager at another time. Yes, we've created this crazy promotional track that's all hierarchical, and that's just not where the world is going. How do I grow and roll? Well, we get there to middle manager, and we're trying to fend off the boss who has crazy ideas I couldn't possibly implement, and make sure my team really loves me and that they're happy and I'm miserable. Because both of these do not see the world as it is. And we get ourselves into this assumption that I can't negotiate. Everything's negotiable. We call it a career limiting move. Right? I'm not going to disagree or push back or object with my boss. Only here's the trap. My boss can't see what I can see. So what I must learn to do is to grow up a little bit and to stop making it so personal and begin to speak the language that my boss speaks, right? This is the art of influence. Coaches work with leaders all the time. What is it your leader's paying attention to? You know that by how they spend their time. What's the priority in the organization, and to what degree are you making your pitch about or negotiating that project in the context and the language that your boss can hear? Oh, well, I'm not doing that. Might that be an option for you? And I said, in your team who don't ever want to hear bad news, what are you teaching them? That there's never bad news? Come on. What would happen if you were more transparent and said to them, I understand why this decision has been made. It is the right decision financially for the organization, and boy, it makes it tough for us. So why don't we put our creativity thinking hats on? Let's spend some time collaborating on this and see what we can come up with. I mean, by golly, look at the pandemic and how many businesses reinvented themselves in 45, 60, 75 days. And they were, as a result, thriving more than before, because something activated that creativity. But gosh, can't we figure out how to do this without having a pandemic?
Well, I think it's so cool that you kind of gave us an inside scoop as, as to coaching for those of us who have, those individuals who had not yet experienced it, because it does provide an opportunity to pause in a safe way and do that work to connect with what are our thoughts and our values and our frames of reference and our beliefs and so on, and to have somebody who is very much a peer to us. They're not going to give us guidance, but they're going to help us reconnect with what's most important to us and with our courage, so that we could step into that influence and express and ask for what we need. And so if we were to kind of loop back to this idea of 7 billion heroes, what would you want every beautiful soul on our planet to know about what's available to them, what's possible for them?
Yeah. I'm appreciating you brought back the word courage. When we remember, cur is the Latin for heart. And this is the place we must come back home to remember that the heart is the place we can embrace everything. Our mind makes it up that it's not safe out there. And our heart says, are you sure? And now we begin to open our eyes to see, oh, maybe it's not as hard as I thought. Maybe there is something here for me. Now, mind you, I am not dismissing the horrific things that are happening in war-torn parts of the world, in famine in the world, in disease. I mean, Ebola is back. It never went anywhere. And yet, when you look at the healthcare workers that go into the rural countryside of Africa, it is their heart that says, we'll find it. We'll find it. And we'll bring life-saving medicines here. And I'm courageous to put on a hazmat suit and take care of that baby and that mother and that elder. It's not any different. We have more privilege in other parts of the world for sure. Maybe in some ways we ought to be getting on it. If they can get on it, we sure as heck could get on it, meaning shift our mindset to pay attention to the world as it is and let wonder and curiosity operate. Those live in the heart and in the gut and in the body, not to the exclusion of logic and reason, of course, but in partnership and in balance. And this is what I long for. That's how we ignite 7 billion heroes.
And may I share what's coming up for me here?
Please do.
So I think of the 7 billion heroes in the world and the 7 billion heroes in our inner world, because when you just spoke of courage and acceptance, and I thought, well, how cool would it be if everyone were able to embrace compassionately, courageously all the parts of themselves, so that, kind of head and heart are together, working together, because we need both. What would be different? How would we feel? And then, of course, what would we ask for or give in our world? And I think it's so beautiful that we can do this. That we can reprogram habitual thought patterns, that we can shift how we feel to be able to get a different perspective and show up differently. And how amazing that professions like coaching are there to support us to do that.
Yeah.
Because often it can be hard to do alone. And, love from somebody else goes a long way, whether it's a formal coach or an informal coach, someone that is really there to listen to us and be present with whatever is showing up without judgment.
Yeah. That's such an important key that you just spoke with leaders. And maybe for another time, we'll pick up a deeper piece here about judgment. We've made it the enemy. We say, don't be judgmental, right? Be non-judgmental. And yet judgment is discernment and critical thinking, right? So we want that piece. And, just try being non-judgmental. Come on. It's just not possible. It's like breathing. It's how we make sense. The trap is when we're judgmental and we think that's the whole story, we act out of habit, preference, assumption, and bias, and we create hurt. Compassion means to not turn away in the face of hurt. Compassion means to be with the passion. So when we're judgmental, be with ourselves and go, yeah, I'm feeling really judgmental about this person. I don't mean to be, but it hurt. And then address the hurt, not the judgment, so that we can find a bridge, come back to the connection and belonging with each other. I worry a great deal about the divisions that people are making so artificially. We can have policy decisions all day long, but we've made them personal. What will happen when people realize that on the other side, they've built a construction that is a house of cards? There's no foundation to the building. And can we all be generous to be with that passion and to see there is something else? See the world as it is, and I see you, right? The wonderful Ubuntu, Swahili word Ubuntu, that says, I cannot be fully me if you cannot be fully you.
I love that.
Right?
Like yin and yang, right? Two ends of a stick. We need them both. This interdependency is, requires that we acknowledge and accept and be curious about and use the word compassion, compassionate, right? It's a, I'm a part of you, you're a part of me.
And that's in the inner world too, right? All of the inner selves. Can we be with the passion of all of our inner selves? Um, shadow work is all about, and I love unconditionally the part of me that could pick up an axe and hurt somebody. I would do it if I was protecting my child. It happens. It's part of the human condition, right? We're so quick to say, well, no, but of course I couldn't do that. Really? Are you sure? The minute you deny that, you're not in compassion with the inner selves. Now, I'm not speaking about this as a therapeutic process, but more the selves of being human. We're an animal. It's like all the animals on the planet. And when we can be in the whole context of who we are, no, I'm not going to pick up an axe and kill somebody when there is no reason for me to do that. The world is safer than that where I am. I've constructed that until I don't. In which case, then I must look at, how did I construct that? We're
Well,
straying a little bit, but this is the piece. Can I listen? Can I hear? Can I manage my impulsive in favor of slowing down and being still and listening to the wholeness in the world as it is?
I think we can when we remember that who we are is that hero, that self leader of all these beautiful, perplexed, disturbed little parts of us, with all these biases and fears and, right, just doing things out of love. But when we can really step into the hero that we are, each of us for ourselves, then love will solve all the problems.
All we need is love.
It is true. And there is a lot of science showing that. And
Yeah.
we know that. We know that. And so I am so grateful to you, Janet, for giving from all that you have to the coaching profession, for all the leaders that you've worked with, all the students that you've mentored and inspired, including myself, and for now stepping into a place uh, of even greater collective consciousness to help each of us remember the hero that we are so that we can inspire 7+ billion of us to truly ignite who we truly are and create an even more beautiful world.
Oh, you so honor me reflecting that back. Thank you. Thank you so much.